Got this mesquite stump that I harvested from a ranch down close to Hondo. It's been sitting out here for a few months, and I'm gonna be turning that into bowls at some point. I had another one a little smaller, and it was sitting right there, and I've already prepared it into bowl blanks, and so we're going to be using that today to turn a bowl in the shop. And I have mounted in the center of the cut face a 3-inch faceplate with 3-inch screws into the face of this larger piece of mesquite. As you can see, the log here ran left to right, and then I split the log in half and then rounded the corners with the chainsaw so that I have what we call a bowl blank ready to go, and we're going to put that on the lathe today and turn it into a bowl. Here's my lathe. It's a Nova 162444, and it has a swiveling head on it. Right now I've got the head turned outboard about 12 degrees, but that's not going to be enough because the piece that I'm going to be turning it will not clear the bed of this lathe, so I'm going to have to turn my lathe motor outboard. So we do that by we loosen the set screw here that keeps the head from turning, and then we turn the head 90 degrees outboard, and it has a stop there where it catches. There is the lathe turned, and then we'll tighten this back down and use our bar to put the final tightening on it. I have an outboard tool rest here that I'll be using for this operation. So now it's time to mount the bowl blank on the lathe. So here's our bowl blank. Pretty heavy. I'm going to be mounting that here on this 1 1/4 inch screw. There we go. It's pretty well balanced. So I'm going to set my speed, pull in on my lathe here. To the slowest speed to start with. This will turn into about 214 RPM to start with, which is what we want. We'll just check it, make sure here. There we go, pretty slow. But we're going to be knocking a lot of these rough edges off, so we need it to go slow at first. Now we'll pull our outboard tool rest around, get ready to start roughing this thing out. Just going to use my straight bar rest to start with. Started now. gloves. Face shield, and we'll get going. I'll be using a roughing gouge at first. This is once you start off just knocking off the bark and the rough stuff, trying to shape the bowl at first. Keep moving my tool rest around, smoothing this off. Okay, so I've done some of the rough gouging, so I've got a little bit of a more balanced piece now, starting to take a little bit of a bowl shape. So I think we have enough balance in our piece that we can stop it and up our speed. You see, we're still not round, but we're approaching round. So I'm gonna raise the speed a little bit and continue the rough gouging of the piece. Okay, I raised my speed up now to 360 RPMs. Still not shaking too bad. A little bit of shimmy and shake to it, but not too bad. This lathe has shocks on its feet, so a pretty heavy cast iron stand, so it doesn't move around on me in the shop. And now we'll continue with the rough gouging. I'll be forming a tenon on this end of the piece, and after the tenon is formed, I'll be attaching a jaw chuck to the tenon. That's why I'm starting to shape this way as we rough it out. It's a 3/4 inch tenon on the end of the piece. So that's what I'm working on now. It needs to be 2 1/4 inches across. That's what my jaw chuck will grab onto. And about 3/4 of an inch deep. So I'm shaping the bottom of the bowl down to accommodate that 3/4 inch tenon. So there's our tenon. And we're going to round this up a little more, get it all balanced out, and then we'll transfer our bowl down to the jaw chuck. Okay, so now our piece is pretty round. Still got to take it down some more, but it's pretty round and balanced. So I think I'm going to check my diameter and make sure that I can swing this around. And I think I can, and so we'll move it over to the jaw chuck, transfer it over to the bed so that we can continue to work on our bowl. Okay, here's the jaw chuck, and it's opened up, so we're going to slip that on to our tenon and tighten it down. We won't tighten it too much because we're going to align it once we get it over the bed. So we'll just kind of snug it up a little bit and transfer it over. Okay, now I've got the jaw chuck mounted on the tenon, and the chuck is mounted on the screw of the lathe, and there's the faceplate we used to start with. So I'll remove that faceplate, and then I'm going to move my tailstock up into the lathe to the piece to hold it while we finish truing it up and taking it down to final diameter. There we have our piece mounted. So we've kind of got this thing down into its final shape. I've noticed that if you'll listen to the wood, it'll kind of tell you what shape it should take. It does that by the grain patterns and the way that the sap and so forth is shaped on the tree. So we've shaped this one, has actually turned into a little bit of a bell shape, and that's because of the way these grain patterns are, and the way I like to leave a little bit of the yellow sapwood on mesquite. It gives it a little bit of character, and you have to go down through the rough sap into what's called the Cambria, which is right next to the heartwood, which is dark. So by leaving that sapwood, you get a distinctive marking on there, and so by doing that, this turned into kind of a bell-shaped bowl on the outside. So the outside is pretty much finished there as far as turning, and next step is to hollow out the insides. So that'll be next. I want to show you how much sawdust we make when we're turning a big bowl like this. It's pretty amazing how much of this accumulates on the floor. We'll be scooping this up, and I usually I give this to a friend that has chickens, and they put it in their chicken coop. Also, I keep a box here under my lathe to scoop the stuff up in and dump it in the box, and also use it as kind of mulch in my garden in between my beds and so forth. We're going to be hollowing the bowl out now using a bowl gouge, and just kind of start toward the outside and get a bite there and work it toward the center. Keep doing this process over and over, and we'll gradually begin to hollow this bowl out. So I've turned the bowl blade now outboard 12.5 degrees, and I've replaced the tool rest with curved bowl tool rest, and I'm continuing to hollow it out using the bowl gouge, making a lot of sawdust. As you can see, we'll just continue that process until we get on down in there. That's how it's done. We're going to continue to hollow out this bowl, and I wanted to show you how that goes with this bowl gouge. We just start from the edge and work our way in toward the center, continuing to shape the bowl. I had a little flaw right here, so I just kind of notched that out. That was a knot, and so our bowl is going to have an irregular top to it, which is okay by me. Let's get a little bite here. Walk that in towards the middle. That's kind of how it goes. We'll just keep shaping that until we get our final bowl shape. Well, we've got the bowl now down to about the final depth, hollowed out here, and we check our wall thickness to make sure we're not too thin anywhere. In the bottom, check our thickness on the bottom. Looks like we've got a good 3/4 inch on the bottom, so walls are good. Now we want to clean out the inside of the bowl real good, and for that we use what's called a bowl scraper, and it's just sharp edge here along the top, and I'm going to run that inside the bowl around the edge like this to kind of scrape the inside and make it all nice and even in there, so that we'll have a real good smooth interior to our bowl. This is kind of the last step in the hollowing process before we start sanding. Okay, so now we have our bowl hollowed out, and starting to see some of the grain patterns there. Got our little notch here in the top where the knot came out, and then we have our bottom kind of shaped in a little bit there to our tenon. So our bowl's all ready, and it's time to start the sanding process. And for that, we're going to start out with 80 grit paper, and we'll go all the way to a 600 grit paper, kind of one right after the other. So we'll start this process with now we've got the rough sanding done. We got it sanded down with the 80 grit, and that's gotten rid of most of the tool marks and so forth that would be left on the bowl. Some pretty grain patterns showing up here. Okay, now we've sanded this down with the 180 220 grit. So now we're down to 220. Our next step will be 380. So you can see it's starting to take on a little sheen to it. It has a little more of a smooth finish, and we're going to try to get this bowl to look a lot like glass when we get done. I'll be taking it up, right now it's on 360, so I'll take it up to the next level, which will be 684 RPMs. Now we've got it turning at 680 RPMs, a lot faster, and I'm using a 320 grit paper here. And we'll start to get a little sheen as this bowl begins to really get slick. Well, we're going to start with the final grade of sandpaper here, the 600. and I want you to see kind of what happens to the sheen on the bowl as we apply this. That's that edge making that racket. Have to be careful right there. So we'll continue to sand with the 600, and you'll see, I think, that we'll begin to get a pretty good shine on our bowl as we go along here. And this is without any sealer or anything. This is just the raw wood sanded with a 600 grit. So we'll continue that process, and then I'll get back with you in a little bit. Okay, so we've got our bowl sanded down now with all the way to 600 grit. You can see it's got a nice smooth glassy finish to it. Lots of nice grain in it. I particularly like these twin knots on the side. The thing about Mesquite is those will stay solid. Those won't shrink and fall out or anything as the years go by. That'll remain just like that. A little bit of the sapwood left here on the edge, and of course our knot that broke out on the edge of the bowl. We're just going to leave that as a flaw in the bowl, but I just think it makes it prettier. So unusual. This is a large bowl. This came from an 18-inch stump, so I usually don't get bowls this large very often from Mesquite. They don't usually grow that big, so this is a prize. So we've removed the tenon from the bottom and sanded that out and placed our brand on there, handcrafted by Herb Ingram Woodworking. So our bowl is all done and looks real nice, ready to show in the Salado Wildflower Arts and Crafts show on March 22nd this 2014. It'll be featured at that show as one of my pieces, and it is for sale. So looking forward to seeing who wants to own this and have this in their home. Thanks for watching, and till next time, this is Herb Ingram signing off. So our 6 coats of wax now have been put on and buffed out. You can see we've got a real nice shine on our bowl. Let me stop that so you can take a look at the grain patterns and so forth. You can see the twin knots there that I was talking about earlier. Looking at you. Turned out real nice. It's got a very nice sheen to it, glassy look. Grain patterns are beautiful. Now all we have to do is remove it from the tenon and sand out the bottom, and we'll finish out the bottom, and our bowl will be complete. I'll saw that tenon off, and then I will sand that bottom out, and I'll put my brand on it, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's all done. First coat of wax is on, ready to and dried and ready to be buffed out. You can see it's kind of got a little bit of a dull finish there, but as we apply the buffing cloth to the bowl, you'll see that change. Right before your eyes. There you have it. And we'll apply about 6 more coats of that, and I'll show you what it looks like after that's all done. We apply the wax when the piece is still, and then we buff it out when it's turning. So I'll put the wax on and then I'll show you when we buff. So now our bowl has been buffed out with the steel wool, and our final step will be to apply the wax. And I use about 6 coats of a Renaissance microcrystalline polish and wax for our steel wool. We'll just buff the piece out. See, move the excess sanding sealer and smooth that up. Okay, so we've applied our cellulose sanding sealer to the piece and let it dry. And now we're going to be taking the quadruple aught steel wool and we'll be removing the excess sanding sealer from the piece. We're going to see the grain really pop out now as we put this sanding sealer on. Show you what that does to the wood here. See the difference. We'll go ahead and apply the sanding sealer to the whole piece. Okay, final sanding is all finished and we're ready to begin our finishing process. I use a cellulose sanding sealer as a first step.